Welcome to Live, Laugh, Shut the Fuck Up and Listen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Katie L. Eads.
I'm Marissa Senzaki, and we are your strategic partners for evaluating personal and professional development trends.
Today we're talking about meaning and whether or not meaning is mean. Are you looking for meaning in all the wrong places? Does life even mean to have meaning? And if so, Marissa, where do you start to find it?
Well, this topic came up for us as we were discussing, various clients or people we know in our lives who have come to a point in their career where they're feeling a little bit stuck or unhappy and trying to find meaning in their work. And it kind of raises the question, do our jobs even need to be meaningful to our life's purpose?
Mm-mm. Well, I always like to look at definitions if I'm going to get clear around meaning. And so meaning is applied or explicit significance. And so when we're looking for meaning at work, what we're saying is that there is significance here. We do spend a significant portion of our day with work. But what does that look like to apply significance? And does it need to be as serious and significant as it sounds? When I look at meaning, the word mean is in it. And I do find that myself included, I've had times in my life where I've been pretty mean about finding some type of meaning in the work I'm doing.
Yeah, so when we're mean to ourselves, are we putting too much unnecessary pressure?
Or significance, back to our definition of meaning. Are we putting too much significance on, what do we care about at 95 years old? Those are the things that give us meaning. And if we're looking back at 95 and we are thinking about this argument we had with somebody at work, is that on the highlight reel?
Yeah, I've definitely listened to people who have interviewed people on their deathbeds and have said like there was not one single person that brought up the significance of their job or regretting something that happened within their job. It was more about the time that they spent in relationship to other people. Um, and so when we talk about just kind of how people approach how they kind of frame the way they're seeing the work that they're doing today. You and I had an example of people that were in a very similar situation, and one was able to be kind of playful and free with it, and the other person was kind of stuck in this, constantly talking about what happened in the past, or not even being happy when they were presented with the opportunity that they wanted. It's like, okay, now I've reached this next goalpost. Okay, now what can I complain about?
Yeah, the meaning I see there is people find meaning in the amount of people they impact. It doesn't feel significant enough. They want to expand their scope or their reach. And that for me says that what they're really saying is significant is the work that they leave behind or what they're doing. I think of our PhD holders and those professors who their entire life's work is put into research. You can't have that research be wrong. What meaning would the research have? And that is in contrast to, I forget which culture this is, where they make these beautiful mandalas on the sidewalk, and it takes thousands of hours to make them. And then they bring them outside and they let the wind blow. And within an hour, it's gone because the meaning came from the experience itself, good or bad or otherwise. The meaning didn't come from the outcome. And I think that where we're mean to ourselves with meaning is that it feels like a quest. It feels like a box that we have to check. It feels like some place that we have to land.
Katie, I think you're frozen on my end. But yeah, I think we're so focused on the end point and getting to that destination.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
do I have you back? Your video is still frozen for me. Um, so I think, yeah, how we're mean to ourselves is by constantly being critical and not appreciating the moment that we're in, um, as well as not enjoying or celebrating the moments that we do win and the accomplishments that we have. Are you back now? And this is the
I can hear
fun
you.
of
I'm not
going
sure if
live.
you're able to hear me over there.
I can hear you now, but your video is still frozen on my end. Oh, there. I think it moved.
Excellent. Well, yeah, what I hear in what you're saying is there's a lot of seriousness. Is this podcast meaningful if we don't have it move smoothly? Or are we even looking at this podcast as needing to be meaningful? Um, what is the meaning of life after all if it isn't to play and to have painful experiences, joyous experiences? You know, is it, the Gen Zers, I think they're saying, I do it for the plot twist, where I do it for the story that you get to share afterwards. Do it for the
Mm.
experience. Do it for the learning.
But what do people do when they're stuck in that moment and they are struggling to find happiness, they're struggling to find fulfillment, and they're like, "This just sucks. I hate it. I hate everything. Don't wanna be here. Don't wanna do this." How can
Mm,
they get out of that spiral?
mm. I like to think of starting with getting out of Groundhog Day first. Whenever we're feeling struck, where there's something we're resisting, and perhaps we need a new environment to see a new perspective. Perhaps we
Mm.
need to examine what exactly are we resisting and where are we creating that suffering. Don Miguel has a great quote in his book: "If you are suffering, be sure to enjoy it, for you are the one who has caused it."
Wow, I bet that would go over a lot of people's heads.
I bet a lot of people
Because
will push back at that, and that's where I would like to be kind of playful of,
Uh-huh.
"Well, is that happening to you right now?" And that person might say, "Well, no, it happened to me 5 years ago." Okay. Are you enjoying those memories? Are you enjoying replaying it in your head? I do think that rumination can happen when we're in the middle,
Mhm.
the messy middle. I've been there. It's very hard. And um, what we don't realize is that every single hero has the journey of having some type of happen to them. So if you find yourself in a place of, I'm not happy, I'm frustrated, congrats, hero. Like, you're about to go on a really amazing journey. And everyone knows that their rock bottom is your catalyst into something positive. Every addict will tell you that. Perhaps you were addicted before to your suffering, to your mental way of thinking. And this is your opportunity to get off the addiction coaster and stop living Groundhog Day.
Mm. The other problem that I kind of see when people are in kind of in that muck that you've talked about is some people want that instant meaning, and they get frustrated when they can't figure out or make sense of it. I had a friend who went through something difficult, and she's like, "I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, and, like, why did this have to happen to me?" And a couple of years later, I'm like, "Do you feel like now you've learned something or you've, like, figured out what that meaning was for you?" And she's like, "I don't know, not really." So, I think there are people that, they want an answer right away, and part of that, obsessive thinking about the past is tied to, like, "Well, when am I gonna have that moment when it all makes sense?"
Does it have to make sense to have meaning? I think that's another question. I do appreciate the word mean being here. I mean, if we're going to use mean and what mean means in a mathematical sense, um, then you have to look at like, oh, meaning. Meaning comes in the middle. The mean comes in the average. Like these
Mm,
aren't the great times. um,
yes.
Meaning always happens in the middle, and it's messy. But to live is to experience that. Rich folks have problems because we don't really find meaning for some reason unless we're overcoming a problem. We don't even think about meaning unless we have a problem. And then it's, where do I go to find it? I can't find it.
My friend is convinced that's why all the Real Housewives always create drama. She's like, "They've got such a perfect life. They have to
No, they're
create problem."
actors. Their meaning is to show up, and their explicit significance is, I have a TV show and I am significant, therefore I am angry and I fight with these people. Um, the meaning of life is ultimately what we're talking about here. And I think it's just to be, our purpose is to be ourselves. But when I talk to people about what is significant for them at 95, they talk about people they love, people they care about. And I do see the most toxic environments are where people love their coworkers. They love their direct reports. I can't leave my team. What would my team do without me? They've overvalued their own significance in someone else's story. And so therefore they don't have any meaning in their own story because they're looking for it elsewhere.
Yeah. So the meaning in how you define yourself relative to other things.
Mm. Yeah, what is actual significance? What is actually significant for you at 95? So when you're
Mhm.
in the messy middle, you think about yourself in a rocker. You do a nice meditation if you'd like and picture what's on the highlight reel. But more importantly, notice what's not on the highlight reel. You could try to access your higher self. When I look back at this moment 5 years from now, what do I want to remember that I did? What I hear a lot from coaches is, who do you want to be in this moment? And I hate that. I hate that fucking question. No, who do you want to look back and know that you could have, that we were, and what did you want to look back and see that happened in that moment? When I look
Mhm.
back at my shittiest job, what I see myself doing is waking up after Christmas and being inspired by my dad's boyfriend who was studying Spanish at 7 a.m. at 79 years old. And I decided I was going to do something differently. I did one thing differently. I booked a women's and development conference in the city in like the first week in January. And that woman was a life coach. And I remembered that before I got divorced and sold my gym, that I wanted to come back to executive coaching and supporting leaders, but I needed to get my own life together. I needed more experience. Timing. Ultimately, timing is what gives these moments in our life so much meaning, because the shittiest words I've ever written, I didn't know I was going to need them when I was an executive coach. And now they're the most powerful, shifting stories that people hear. And by January 26th, I had a business and my job got shitty, 6 months before that. So the meaning was like, oh shit, I got to do something different. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not looking for like my purpose in life. I'm just looking at, I got to do something different. New environment, new people,
Mhm.
all of a sudden life changes. How do you get yourself out of that? Well, I don't have that answer for how you give yourself the itch, how, other than you just decide. There is no step program. You literally just decide, I will do something different today. Either you're groundhog or you're not. Brush your teeth with
Mhm.
your left hand if you're afraid to start big. But we will cling to what is comfortable versus take a risk for something it's not. And to be honest, that conference was irritating. I had to go all the way to the Upper West Side. It was like I was tired. I was thinking about bailing. It was only $95. Like, you truly do have to give yourself a fucking pep talk if you don't want to be there anymore, which is why we create our own suffering. My life would be so different if I decided I wasn't going to go to that conference. It wasn't a conference, it was a workshop. What
I'm
advice do you have
also
for people? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, it's so you had this small shift, right? And that led to something bigger. I'm seeing people being stuck in kind of this middle, or like the theme that I'm seeing a lot are people who are like, well, I know I'm unhappy in the job I have, but it pays the bills and it offers me the stability, and that makes me feel safe and comfortable. There's also this other thing that I kind of know I want to do more of that would be more fun, but I don't know how to turn that into something lucrative where I'd get paid to do it. Um, and they're constantly like, how do I mesh the two? How do I have a job that I love that also pays me money? This goes back to
You start to
what
love
I
the
was
money. If you loved your money, you would be like, "Oh, I love my job. It pays me a shit ton of money." "Oh, do you love what you do?" "No, but I love my job because it pays me a shit ton of money." That would be my short
Mhm.
answer there, but, I like to think about a Ferris wheel. You're already going in a circle, right? I love my job. There's this other thing I'd love to do, but I need this money and stability, but I also want to do this other thing. Okay. That's a Ferris wheel. How do you make a Groundhog Day Ferris wheel different? Well, you invite some different people to take a ride with you. So then you start to look at, well, who do I want to either tell about how I love my job, but I want to do something different? Or who do I want to tell about how I'd love to do something different within my company because I love this company so much because of the money? I don't really love the company, I love the money, whatever it is. So you can go in a circle, the same quarter, doing the same exact shit that you always do. But now your mindset is, I love my job because I love money. And you're going to talk to different people on that Ferris wheel as it goes around. And there's so many seats that you'll meet with each quarter. And this is exactly how I take someone that's a victim and allow themselves to free themselves from their own suffering. They're going to bump into something new while doing the same shit they already do. And they might even ask somebody on that Ferris wheel ride, "Hey, who do you know that I should bump into?"
I like that analogy, and I think that brings back kind of the playfulness element that you always bring to coaching, which I love. Um, for me, when I hear people talk about this, I started to think about, well, like, why are we beating ourselves up to think that we have to get everything from this one job or career, that
That's
we
pretty
have to have
mean.
all the elements there. And so when I talk to people, I talk about like different pillars of like what they're looking for in a job, whether that's the social connection, the like growth from a development skills, or whether it's just the cold hard cash and like what is most
Mm.
important to you right now. And that will change. It can change over time, right? Depending on where we are in life and what we need. But um, just like we say with a romantic partner, no one is gonna like check every single box. I think that the job that you choose too, it's not gonna check every single box all the time.
Mm. When I see people struggling to find meaning at work, I start helping them find more meaning outside of work.
Mhm.
Um, really fixes those, as you start to spend more and invest more time in the meaningful things outside of it, you do see your job differently. You see it as, I get to clock out at this time. I get to do this. I get to have that. And timing is ultimately your answer. If your Ferris wheel is always turning, however slow it turns, and you're not always meeting with the same people, you will find that spark. I could have gone to that conference 2 years before that. It wouldn't have been the same spark. And that meaning is for me, like, what do I give explicit significance to? Synchronicity. If you were to ask me, Katie, where do you find your meaning? I'm like, everywhere. I have a conversation with Marissa. I hop on another call and someone says the same thing. Ooh, that's significant. That's a synchronicity. Look at the meaningful conversation I had. If I'm going into crappy conversations, ooh, I'm learning, I'm curious. And then if it shows up later and I'm like, "Oh, there was the meaning of that." Miracles happen either every day, once in a blue moon, or never. You get to decide. And we call those coincidences. Or we call it a serendipity. But to me, that is the meaningful moments. Those are the flirts from the universe. I have too many of them for them to just be funny coincidences. And you might say, well, Katie, are you looking for them? Well, yes, I am looking for meaning everywhere I go. You're right. I do find them in weird places. The guy that made my Jimmy John sandwich, he told a joke that someone else told today. And I'm like, man, there's a synchronicity. Like the universe is laughing with me. I don't have to have a job anymore to find meaning. And also on my quest to finding that meaningful occupation that paid those same corporate bills. Well, the fun part about not actually being in corporate was it's a lot cheaper to replace my corporate salary. Turns out it's a lot easier to find $100,000 than it is to find $200,000 or $300,000 with stock options. But the journey of everything I've done has been so meaningful. I think the other people find meaning in their security blankets. But how meaningful are those security blankets if you don't live to see retirement?
Mm,
Because you
that's
had a
true.
heart attack because you're stressed out.
Mhm. Well, they call, the stock options and all the perks and benefits golden handcuffs for a reason.
But they're your handcuffs, and that brings me back to the suffering that you create. While you were finding purpose and meaning in purchasing the homes and, building up your nest eggs, you forgot that you could just make all that same amount of money, 20 years later if you want doing what you loved. Like we have this, this is where I come back to stop finding your meaning in books and other people's tracks.
Mhm.
If you knew that you were going to be wealthy and have everything you've ever dreamed of at 40, what would you do differently in the first part of it? If you knew, that's my other favorite perspective shift for people is, well, if you knew that you were going to have everything you want in 5 years, what would you do in those 5 years in between? How would you
Mm.
approach them differently? You'd stop searching, right? I don't search for meaning. Meaning finds me. I'm not trying to have, unless the government is quite hilariously orchestrating my life over here. Like, I'm not running into these things. Like, they're finding me. So I don't have to find it. I'm not on a quest for it. I'm just living
Yeah.
it.
And I think that's where the whole self-help industry has really taken advantage of people, um, especially of our, millennial generation is, the find your why and find your purpose and, all these workshops that say they're gonna help you do that. We've just put a lot of pressure on people to, um, have this, grand dream and this grand passion that we're gonna follow through life, and if we're not on that track, we've somehow lost ourselves.
Hmm. We have no meaning.
Do we
Yeah.
need meaning?
I, you know, I think if you were to find a child that lived in an African village without all these modern problems, they would have a better answer on where to find your meaning. They probably would laugh at you and say, I don't understand. This does not compute because we're not looking for something that we have all around of us."
So how can we be less mean to ourselves and more gentle on a quest for meaning?
Hmm. Well, only you can answer that is what I'm going to offer. You can find your meaning wherever you'd like to find it. But I think where we start is by recognizing that the definition of meaning is applied or explicit significance. And you need to decide what truly is significant for you. And there are people who will say, my job. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't know that being a wage slave was so significant. I own a company and I wouldn't say that. I've owned another company, has sold it. And I think that's part of why I understand it. I I was forced to learn to let go. Marissa, when people search for meaning, sometimes they do it through meaningful conversations. How does someone have a meaningful conversation with Marissa that is not quite so mean
Yes, my
and
approach
more
is
focused on the full?
Yeah, I mean, I love to chat with people who maybe are wanting to kind of look inward and find their meaning or bring joy back to what they do. And they can visit my website at marissasenzaki.com. Send me a message and let's see how we can work together.
Fabulous. And if you want to go over to
Oh no, we lost your sound again. Mm,
alprofessionalcoaching.com and check out more, we would love to see you there.
Katie,
You're
I
going to
think
need
you
to end
cut
the
out
podcast without me.
for a bit, but yes, just to repeat that if you didn't get it, Outstanding Women Leaders, you can follow, or Owl Professional Coaching. And we'll see you next week.